everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Trailblazers, brought to you by TechEdge AI, the video podcast where we bring you the latest trends and insights in AI and technology. I'm your host, Siddesh, and today we will talk about Netradyne, a company that harnesses the power of computer vision and edge computing to revolutionize the modern day transportation ecosystem. And to share his journey, we have Durga Dutt Nedungudi, Senior Vice President, International Business, who's an astute business leader and an accomplished spokesperson, and has transformed organizations and managed portfolio mixes. So, without further ado, let's welcome Durga Dutt. Hey Durga, how are you doing today?
All well. Thank you very much, Desh. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure as well. So, Durga, you've been working in global organizations for over 30 years. I mean, I'd love to understand a bit about your journey. What's it been like working across different cultures and emerging markets?
It's been probably the best education one can get. Okay.
Hmm.
I was fortunate to have two longish stints with large companies. One was with Wipro for about 8 years, and then I was with Compaq, which then became HP, for another 16. And I was privileged that both these organizations allowed me to develop different kinds of skill sets. Across those two jobs, I probably performed about 8 or 9 different roles. So as a professional, it gave me the opportunity to really learn multiple skills and round oneself off as someone who understands the business in totality, if you know what I mean, right? And so that was probably the greatest asset that I got from both these companies. And uh, post that, to be able to work with growing organizations has been immensely rewarding, because a couple of things, in large organizations, as important as your role may be, your contribution may be important, but unless you're at the top echelon of the company, what you do moves the needle maybe just about incrementally, right? If at all.
Mhm.
In smaller organizations, firstly, I've had the opportunity to put all the skill sets that I've learned to use, and by using them, I've seen the needle actually move pretty significantly, and that to me is the most fulfilling thing, if you can relate to that.
Perfect. I mean, kudos to the vast experience. That's really inspirational, to be honest. And moving ahead, speaking about global trends, how has the fleet management industry changed over the years? If you might shed a light out there. And do you think concerns about road safety have played a role in these advancements?
Sure. So, fleet management has been around for a while. It's probably been around for a couple of
Mhm.
decades now, right? And I think it started off by being largely, GPS oriented, uh, providing the ability to track where your vehicles were, providing the ability to
Mhm.
monitor vehicle movements across specific routes, right? It then expanded to things like fuel optimization, vehicle maintenance, and so on and so forth. So that became a really strong horizontal, if you will, right?
Got
About
it.
about 10 to 12 years ago, cameras started coming into the picture. But
Mhm.
for the longest while, cameras were used largely only as recording devices, right? So you recorded what was happening potentially on a trip, so that in case
Mhm.
there was an untoward incident, you had the ability to actually roll back the footage that you'd collected and pick up, the evidence that you wanted of, or whatever you actually wanted to see, right?
Mhm.
Over the past 5 to 6 years, this has changed dramatically. Cameras have now become a preventive uh, uh, kind of a tool, rather than just a post facto investigation tool, right? Using artificial intelligence, using machine learning, as you said, using edge computing and so on, we now have the ability to really firstly warn drivers of a potential incident, and
Mhm.
in the event of an incident, um, uh, have a video, for example, available in a couple of minutes. So
Got it.
that has completely transformed the way drivers interact with the road using technology, right? And once
Mhm.
you've got video, it becomes extremely easy to coach drivers to improve. It becomes easy to reward drivers because they're actually driving well, because
True.
video actually gives you the full context of an event, right? Which you otherwise wouldn't
Absolutely.
have got, right? So,
Absolutely.
this is clearly the journey that fleet management has gone through, and I think we're now at the age where we're calling it video telematics rather than just,
Mhm.
fleet management as such.
Got it. Got it.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I guess that's the need of the hour. Yeah. I mean, if I were to look at day-to-day experiences.
That's
So
right.
yeah, speaking of safety, why do you think Nature partnership with Intellex is such a positive step?
Look, all roads can do with, an increased safety, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
Whether it is reducing the number of accidents, or it is just in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
the damage that happens when you have even a small crash, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
of course, as soon as long if you can even save one life through the process, then that's a fantastic thing, right? Uh,
True.
we believe that the partnership with Intellex is one which will allow us to scale our business beyond where we are in the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
It, we've got within the geographies that we're currently commercial, we have about 300,000 or 350 actually thousand vehicles deployed with our technology, right? And customers are telling us that once they use us, their accident rates go down by up to 50%, right?
Okay.
We would love to have that impact in the UK as well. And
Mm-hmm.
for us, the Intellex partnership actually gives us that inroad, which will allow us to address this market much, much more effectively.
Perfect. I mean, that's superb to know. Moving ahead, I just want to understand, or if you could shed some light on about how Netraline's camera system uses cutting-edge technologies like AI, machine learning, and edge computing to create new safety standards.
Yeah, if you look at the buzzwords in the industry today, right? They're all AI, they're ML, they're IoT,
Exactly.
it's edge computing, there is obviously cloud behind everything, hybrid
True.
cloud, embedded. All these are the buzzwords in the industry, right? We are probably
Absolutely.
we are probably one of the few companies who actually use all of these technologies and put them together, right?
Hmm.
Um, in a nutshell, what we do is we actually look at using a two-camera device. We
Okay.
look at firstly how your vehicle is driving relative to others on the road, right? So external facing. We have another camera which looks at how the driver is actually behaving. What are his characteristics? For example,
Mm-hmm.
the outward camera looks at um, recognizes speed signs, stop signs, traffic lights, you know,
Mm-hmm.
lane departure. We now recognize heavy fog, heavy rain, heavy snow, a myriad of things we recognize. And
True.
whenever there is a need of any of these crossing a threshold, for example, if you don't stop at a stop sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, there is a real-time alert which comes from edge processing of all the complex AI algorithms on the device, right? Using the edge processing and um, uh, using edge processing and the algorithms, we're able to generate a real-time alert to the driver, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
then has the ability to take corrective action so that either he doesn't get penalized any further than he needs to, or an incident is avoided, right? At the
Makes
same
sense.
time, a minute-long video of what actually happened gets transmitted through the cloud to the fleet manager on his portal. So
Mm-hmm.
if he then needs to take further action, he also has the ability to do so, right? That's the outward camera. Similarly, the inward camera looks at has the driver worn a seatbelt? Is he talking on the phone? Is he potentially smoking? Is he distracted by moving his head left and right? Right? Is he drowsy? Is he fatigued? All of these are things which the inward camera then looks for and recognizes. And the same thing happens in the event of an infringement of any of these, right? I mean, if the person is falling asleep, there will be an in-cab alert which tells him to wake up, and a minute-long video of that incident gets available. So if you really look at it, what are we doing, right? Firstly,
Makes
by
sense.
giving a real-time alert to the driver, we're giving him an opportunity to correct and avoid a potential incident, right?
Makes
We're
sense.
giving a second level possibility of the same thing for the fleet manager, maybe in a delay of a minute or two by the time it reaches through the cloud, the fleet manager's portal, right?
Got it.
We are then also collecting every minute of drive time. And we have 100 hours of embedded storage capability on the device itself, right? So we have the ability to then go back and check what happened as well in case something needs to be done, right? So plus, we've also created an IP-based scorecard for each driver, which we call a green zone score, right? Now, with this score, you can gamify the system for drivers, right? Each driver wants to have the highest score in his fleet. And then they start really adopting the system, because our system not only penalizes them for bad driving, it also rewards them for good driving behavior.
Oh.
Right? So for example, if you're driving a vehicle and if there's someone who's wanting to overtake you, if you slow down to give that guy space to come in front of you in the lane, we consider that good driving behavior. And we reward the driver with points, what we call driver stars. Right? So his score goes up. So, this gamification then drives adoption with drivers and automatically leads to better driving behavior. And then finally,
Makes sense.
Using all the alert videos that we have the ability to coach drivers, and we coach drivers even virtually. They have a mobile app. Every week, they'll get a couple of videos of their alerts, which will tell them that, look, here was the fleet score. Here was the guy who was best in the fleet. His score was so and so. Your score this week was Y or X. If you had actually not done these two alerts, you could potentially have been Y. And so therefore, improved your score. And that then becomes a 360-degree cycle where you not only avoid untoward incidents, you have video for exoneration purposes in case you need it as evidence, and you perform coaching so that the overall driver behavior improves, right? And all this is done through all the buzzwords that we spoke about, right? Whether it is AI, ML,
AI.
IoT, embedded, edge processing, hybrid cloud, all of that. So
Absolutely.
That's what technology does.
Makes perfect sense. I completely agree with you in terms of the buzzwords and all you say AI, machine learning, and edge computing are just buzzwords. So if I just summarize, it's basically data encapsulation, suggesting corrective measures, and making sure that these things are over in the near future.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. I mean, I'll be very honest about it. That really sounds amazing. And coming down to the final question, I just want to understand, how do you see AI-powered data, another buzzword again, how do you see AI-powered data and analytics transforming drivers' behavior monitoring? I mean, do you think it will ultimately lead to fewer accidents and safer roads for everyone?
We're already seeing, as I said, customers say that their accidents are getting reduced substantially. I mean, 50% is a substantial number, right? We believe Okay, and we have the data to support this in terms of all the alert rates that we track, right? We
Mm-hmm.
believe that what we are also doing is encouraging people to drive better on the roads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore make the roads a much safer place for everybody, right?
True.
Um, and at the end of the day, um, what our founders started the company with the mission was to basically do things to save lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? And every single life that you can save makes everything that you do super worthwhile, right? And and what better way to do it than through tech?
Absolutely. I mean, makes perfect sense, using technology for a noble cause, making sure you better lives. So makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Durga, I really enjoyed hosting you on a podcast Tuesdays with Trailblazers. And thank you all for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And do check out Netradyne, the company that helps organizations build a positive, safe, and driver focused culture so they can take their business to the next level. Until next time, stay tuned with Tech Edge AI for more insights into all things AI and technology. Till we meet again, signing off, your host, Sidesh.